Welcome back to Simple Truth. Hey, we're in the book of 1 Samuel. We're talking about the story of David, right? Picking out some truths as we go verse by verse through this. Hopefully, some simple truths for you to live by, right? So we're in this place where we're going to pick it up in verse 26 of chapter 18, right? And we're in this place where David has continually refused to have anything to do with being the king's son-in-law, right? He keeps saying, I don't deserve it. Who am I? I don't deserve this, right? So the king comes up with a ploy, right? Now, again, the reason it's a ploy is he has no interest in David being his son-in-law. He wants David dead, and so he comes up with a plan, and that plan is, I'm going to send him out against the Philistines, right? And they're going to kill him and do all the dirty work for me, and then I'll be like, oh, sorry, right? And it's all under the guise of David working to try to earn the right to be Saul's son-in-law. Now, again, you'd think that Saul would have already thought about the whole David killed Goliath thing and the whole Philistine thing. But, again, sometimes we get so caught up in things that we don't see really clearly the blessing that God has upon somebody, the favor God has somebody, the anointing, the calling. We don't see the giftings of somebody. We simply are out to get them, and we don't understand that what we're really doing is fighting against God. And that's what's happened here, right? Really, truly, what's happening is Saul's fighting against God, not David. David has a right. Who is he? He's nobody. Right? He didn't earn the right to have God's favor be put on him. Matter of fact, God kind of, said, listen, I'm not going to choose the biggest, the bravest, the smartest, the best looking. Right? I'm going to choose the one that I want to, the one that has a man that has a heart after me, a man who has a heart after God's heart. So, verse 26 says, when his servants told David these words, it pleased David right well to be the king's son-in-law. Before the time had expired, David arose, went along with his men, and killed 200 of the Philistines. And David brought their foreskins, which were given in full number to the king, that he might become the king's son-in-law. Right? Saul gave him his daughter Michal for a wife, and when Saul saw and knew that the Lord was with David, and that Michal, Saul's daughter, loved him, Saul was even more afraid of David. So Saul was David's enemy continually. So you see how this didn't work out the way that Saul wanted. He thought, hey, I'm gonna do this crazy thing. Right? I'm going to say, listen, I don't care about anything other than 100 foreskins of the Philistines. That doesn't even mean you have to kill them, right? Although that probably is the way that's going to happen, because it's doubtful that any Philistines are just going to hand that over to you, right? But hey, we're going to circumcise a bunch of Philistines, right? That's the whole idea here. And so Saul said, no way is David going to take on 100 Philistines. It's just, this is not going to happen. He's going to be killed. I'm going to be done with him. The problem is, not only did David go out and do this, but he got 200 foreskins, right? 200 foreskins, and brought them back to Saul, who counted them out to make sure that, he had met the price. And then he gives his daughter to David, and what happens is, now, listen, think about this. Saul's son Jonathan loves David, and now his daughter, right, is in love with David. So not only is God seemingly taking away the kingdom from King Saul, he's taking away his family. David's winning over the heart of his family. You've probably seen this before. You've seen this at work, seen this at home, definitely have seen this at church before, right? People who are just being obedient, doing what God has called them to doing what they've been asked to do, and God just gives them favor. It drives people crazy, but what it ends up doing is winning over the heart of the people, right? It ends up winning over the heart of the people because God's anointing, God's favor is attractive in nature. Now, sometimes, like with Saul, listen, you got an evil spirit on you, it's going to go this way, right? It's dividing. But sometimes when people are in the right place, then people love the anointing. They want to be around the anointing. They love the favor of God. Right? The problem in our world today is there's just a lot of evil lurking around. Doesn't want anything to do with the favor of God. And even in our churches, even in our homes, division is created when people see the favor, the anointing of the Lord, and they get jealous over it. Right? Look at that last verse. Right? So Saul was David's enemy continually. Wow. Saul was David's enemy. It doesn't say David was Saul's enemy. But Saul was David's enemy. Right? Went too far off. Sometimes that just happens. People just get so caught up, so blinded, they can't see. Right? You've seen this happen. I hope it's not happening in your life, but a simple truth, a nugget to dig out of this is that whole concept. Are you so blinded that you can't see the favor, the anointing on somebody? Or you can, and it's just making you jealous. So if you're the only one in a table full of people that is talking bad about somebody, you're constantly trying to cause division, constantly trying to convince everybody that this person isn't as good as they seem, you're probably fighting against God, not the enemy. You're probably being used by the enemy. We know in this story, Saul is being used by the enemy. An evil spirit overtakes him. Don't waste your time, your energy, your resources fighting against God. It's a really simple concept. Ask God. Ask God if someone has his favor, his anointing. Ask God if this is from you. If Saul had at any time asked God, God, is this from you? He'd have been doing everything in his power to hand the kingdom over well to David. Instead, we're going to fight against God to not hand over the kingdom. What kingdom stuff might God be wanting you to hand over that you're refusing to hand over? And instead, you're working against God, not for God. Finish this up with me in verse 30. It says, Then the commanders of the Philistines came out to battle. And as often as they came out, David had more success than all the servants of Saul, so that his name was highly esteemed. So it didn't matter where David went. He was being obedient, going where he was supposed to be going, in the right spot, in the right moment, for such a time as this, and God gave him success. Listen, we know that there's a moment, at least one, where David's not in the right place at the right time for the right reasons. Doesn't go so well. But when you're in the right place, right time, right reasons, when you're trying to be obedient to God, look at what he does. Everything you touch at work, it doesn't go perfectly. It doesn't say David had perfect success on the battlefield. He had more success. Doesn't mean you're not going to goof up. Doesn't mean you're not going to fail. But God's going to give you more success. People are going to notice, and you're going to be highly esteemed. So, here's the number one simple truth to think about. Are you highly esteemed by others because you force that upon them? Or are you highly esteemed by others because they see God's favor and are reacting to it? Right? Do you demand esteem, or does esteem come because you're simply favored by God? That is a great thing to end this simple truth on. We'll see you next time